Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 39. See now that I, even I, am he, and there is no power with me. I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. For I lift up my hand to heaven and say, I live forever. Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem Rakakwadash, and double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace, love, and salutations to the hopeful elect. This is your brother Dawadah from the Men of Valor campaign, Greenville, South Carolina, coming back with another video in sincerity and in truth. Lord willing, it can be edifying. And your boy DJ Trump. Your boy DJ Trump, he on the clock. All right, that's what I'm gonna title this video. He's on the clock. So people have noticed, all right, which, you know, of course they're gonna notice if Trump loves the limelight, he loves talking, he loves yapping, all right. He's been missing, all right, pretty much inactive since around Tuesday. Now it's Monday now, okay? It's, you know, so-called Labor Day. You know, we 6 days coming up on a whole week of, you know, him not tweeting a whole lot. You know, I think he tweeted last night and said good night. It's Labor Day, so you know he would have came out today. Most people were off work. He would have came out today and made some announcements, said something. You know how Trump do, all right? But he's been quiet. But now the White House is saying that he's fine, that he's been golfing on the weekend, and you know you have something called the internet, and people be breaking shit down. You know, I've seen different TikToks of why it would make sense that he's either, you know, already in the spirit world and they haven't announced it yet. Same thing like they did with the Queen, or he's in a coma or something, or he had a stroke and he can't speak. Either way, all right, I want to go through, you know, because not everybody may not know how this works as far as line of succession and, you know, what happens if a president gets removed, or, you know, if he dies, or, you know, how that lines up. Because Trump doesn't even necessarily have to die, and chat gonna break it down. Trump doesn't even have to die for there to be a transfer of power. All right, what can happen is the 25th Amendment can be invoked, and they could rule him unfit to be able to, you know, do his job. All right, so we're going to go into this. So I asked a question. It was an in-depth question. I wanted it specific. I didn't want the bullshit answer that, you know, it would give to the surface level, you know, question. All right. So I said, Trump doesn't seem to be in good health. How would a transfer of power look if he dies or in a coma? How do the other countries move according to this change, given Trump has forced these countries into alliances against America, both militarily and economically. You know, so you have, since he's gotten in his second term, you know, he signed all these executive orders. You know, he passed his big, beautiful bill. All right, he's got these different nations forming alliances against America, Babylon the Great. All right, so he's done a lot in his time as president this time around. All right. But now he's missing. All right, people have noticed his health, and he's up in age. He's about 80. You know, he like to drink, you know, Coca-Colas and eat McDonald's. So, you know, that's poison. So, you know, what do you expect? He's up in age. You know, he still lived longer than most Jakes will live. But nonetheless, he is the sitting president, and he's shaking up the global economy so much. You know, so how would these countries react with him being, you know, pulled out of power? Because, you know, brothers have said through the spirit that they believe that he's going to be the one to, you know, send the missiles off, but the Lord might not have it that way. All right, the Lord might have this nigga Vance get up in here, and who is backed by Peter Thiel, and Peter Thiel is one of the top executives at Palantir, and Palantir has taken over your government already. So if you got Peter Thiel apprentice as the president, all right, hey, they cook, man. Okay, don't think Vance is about to move in accordance of the American people. They're gonna move forward in accordance of the plans of the elites. So this is what chat said. If Donald Trump were to die in office or become incapacitated, for example, in a coma, the U.S. has a very clear constitutional and legal process for transferring power. How other countries respond depends heavily on the circumstances and the alliances Trump has shaped. And he's pissed everybody off. He's even pissed off Japan, calling them Mr. Japan, calling the Prime Minister Mr. Japan because he didn't know what his name was, man. And here it is, Japan owns the most U.S. debt out of any other country. All right, it says, here's how this would unfold. Transfer of power in the U.S. Death or permanent incapacity. The 25th Amendment governs presidential succession and incapacity. If Trump were to die, the vice president immediately becomes president. No vote, no delay. This is automatic, and he has precedent. So it's happened before. You know, when JFK got, assassinated. You know, you got a couple more. It says from JFK to LBJ. I think that's Lyndon Johnson to FDR. Franklin Delano Roosevelt to Harry Truman, I believe that's his name. So it says temporary incapacity, more surgery. The vice president can be acting president if the president voluntarily transfers power, like Reagan did before surgery. And Biden did that he did that when he had to go into a surgery and Kamala Harris was in power for a short period of time. All right, but, nothing really came of that. But something can come of this. It says, or if the president is unable or unwilling, the vice president and majority of the cabinet members can invoke the 25th Amendment to declare him unfit. So they can declare him unfit, man. It says Congress can then review and decide if challenged. So the transition is designed to be orderly and quick. Continuity of government is a priority. Impact on foreign policy and alliances. Trump's foreign policy has been unconventional. He's pressured NATO allies to spend more on defense, reshape trade policies, and force many countries to recalculate their ties with the USA or the US. A sudden transfer of power could create short-term uncertainty. Allies and rivals would pause to see if the US commitments, military and economics, hold under a new president. Reassurance efforts, and interesting enough, right? Something I might, because they might position Vance as somebody that he supported Trump, but he might try to pave his own path. And some optics that are notable is when they decided to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities, and they made their announcement. You had Pete Hegseth, and who else? You had Pete Hegseth and Trump on one side, I believe, and then you had Vance like kind of standing separated from him, and it looked kind of off. It looked kind of odd. All right, so that might be something notable to pay attention to, as we deal with this very real possibility that Trump might be out of it, and Vance will have to step in. It says reassurance efforts. The vice president or new president would almost certainly make quick calls to NATO, G7, and Asian allies to reassure them of continuity. Testing by rivals. Adversaries like Russia, China, Iran, North Korea might probe U.S. resolve during the transition. Hey, they could, Taiwan could end up being invaded by China in this time, man. Because they would be distracted. It says, and also Russia could go and do a full take on Ukraine. So, a shit could pop off, man. It says, through military maneuvers, cyber attacks, or diplomatic pushes. Alliance recalibration. Nations that were reluctantly aligned under Trump because of his pressure tactics might quietly test whether the new president is more flexible or willing to return to traditional diplomacy. How other countries might move, NATO and Europe. They'd look for signals whether U.S. troop commitments and defense guarantees remain firm. Some may push to strengthen their own defense autonomy in case of U.S. shifts. Asia, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan will urgently seek reassurance of U.S. defense commitments against China and North Korea. Middle East, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Iran will all test how policy changes since Trump's approach there has been particularly disruptive. Global economy, markets would react immediately to uncertainty. Central banks and finance ministries worldwide would coordinate with the U.S. Treasury and Federal Reserve. to steady global confidence. It says, in short, the U.S. system ensures power doesn't sit in limbo. Vice President steps in immediately, but geopolitically, the shock of Trump's sudden absence would ripple across the alliances, with allies seeking reassurance and rivals tempted to test U.S. resolve. So the Lord is the master architect. He is the master director of this movie. All right. And just like, we don't know. We know what's written. We know that this system has to collapse. We know that they're going to push this NWO. They're going to push this MOTB. They're going to try to see-hip people. They're going to declare martial law at one point. Jacob's Trouble is going to be here. World War III is going to happen. All right, these are things that we know. Now, in what order and who's where to push what button, we don't exactly know. But we know the Lord wanted Trump in for these last however many months, and he's reshaped the global economy. He's activated, these different nations to look at America like, man, fuck y'all, man. You got these nations clicking up against America. So he's done his job. He signed the big beautiful bill. You women's food stamps taken away, Section 8 taken away. The jobs are fucked up. He took the pause away of the moratorium for student loan debt. So you people owe student loan debt again. You got to make your payments. All right. They've been pressuring the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates, and they haven't yet. So this could be something that sets shit off, man. You could have America's rivals be like, fuck it, we smell blood and we're going to move in. And also as allies, we know at some point NATO is actually going to turn on America. All right. And I could see Vance being that guy, man. Being a real cruel Lord. Like I was speaking with the eye earlier, he reminds me of, one of these dudes in Gilead. If you watch Handmaid's Tale, he kind of got that look, because they were rocking beards and stuff like that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go check it out. Handmaid's Tales, and how the men were in positions of power in America and stuff like that. So I can see he gives that vibe, man. But we don't know for sure. It's up to the Lord. But I've been seeing on TikTok that, they're saying he's missing. Of course, the White House and, mainstream media are saying that he's okay. He's golfing and shit like that. All right, but he's not. All right. Him being so talkative and being so in the open as opposed to like Biden makes people, realize that, yeah, something's wrong, especially him being up in age. Because, hell, he wasn't going to be able to do this forever. All right. So the Lord he's going to take him out the way. And that's why I started with Deuteronomy 32 and 39. I'm going to read it again. See, now that I, even I, am he, and there is no power with me. I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. For I lift up my hand to heaven and say, I live forever. The Lord reigns supreme. All right. The Lord ruleth. I'm going to get that next. The Lord rules in the kingdom of men. So all your presidents, all your monarchs, all your kings of the earth and nobles, they have been hand selected by the Heavenly Father for their different appointed times. Let's see. This is Daniel chapter 4 and verse 17. This matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basis of men. So the Lord controls, we know these presidents are selected, they're not elected. And again, J.D. Vance is a protege of Peter Thiel, and Peter Thiel is one of the founding executives of Palantir. And Palantir is the AI company that they're going to use to control your military, to control your government, and to control ultimately the American people. And now they're going to have an active sitting president if this goes, if Trump is taken out of the way, which Trump pretty much got him in there. But having a guy like Vance, once again, who has close connections to Peter Thiel, that's going to set shit off, man. That's going to set that digital revolution all the way there. He's not going to go against, his guys. He's not going to go against his mentors. He's not going to go against those that poured into him and got him to this position of vice president, because they endorsed him. They're hundreds of steps ahead of what you people are thinking about, man. They're thinking about this decades out for the most part. They got a guy, when they wanted Obama in there, they slid him in right after Bush. And then they slid Trump after Obama. And then they slid Biden in after Trump, and then they brought Trump back. And now Trump he might be unfit to lead. And Vance, if nothing happens to him, he would be the next. And if something happens to Vance, it would be Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House. You know? Salaki. So, just something to look out for. You know, this is what we're paying attention to. You know, we the watchmen. You know? So we seeing what's the word on the street at the moment. And we see things are happening. So, I just wanted to bring this out, Lord willing, those edifying. I'm going to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Kakudash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who rule well. Peace, love, and salutations to the hopeful elect. Till next time, Shalom.